Students, today I am going to talk about Leigh Hunt's essay, Getting Up on Cold Mornings. But before we proceed with the text, I would like to tell you something about Leigh Hunt. Leigh Hunt was a famous poet, an essayist, critic, political commentator, playwright, and a translator. He was more famous as an essayist, and his critical essays reveal a keen sense for what is good in literature. They quote extensively from the works being considered. Most of his essays are famous for their humorous tone. Although they are not as polished as the essays of Charles Lamb or as perceptive as those of William Hazlitt, yet a few, such as Getting Up on Cold Mornings and Deaths of Little Children, continue to be anthologized as classics. This essay, Getting Up on Cold Mornings, first appeared in the Indicator during 1819 to 21. It's a descriptive essay and the tone of the essay is humorous. The language is a bit difficult, long, uneven, complicated sentences are there and they may lack depth, yet the essay is enjoyable. The theme of the essay describes that how Hunt favors and rationalizes his reluctance to get out of bed on a cold morning. In the first part of the essay, Leigh Hunt marks about the familiar hellish torture that one experiences on getting upon cold mornings. According to him, everyone knows that it's pleasant to lie in bed on cold mornings, and no one wants to get up at such an earlier time. But one gets up only due to compulsion. Leigh Hunt deals with this familiar experience in a mock serious way in this essay. And so, in the first part, he says that the familiar hellish torture that one experiences on getting upon cold mornings, and about the reason behind this punishment of torture, then to show how lazy people avoid early rising by giving examples of the various ways in which an ingenious lies in bed. Then how do active people are motivated to rise early? Next, in the second part, the essayist puts forward clever and deceptive arguments in favor of laziness by citing various examples. The arguments are related to shaving in cold mornings, then the sheer pleasure of late rising, regarding health and longevity of life. So, he begins the essay by telling us that every one of us will agree that it is indeed very difficult to get out of bed on a cold morning, because the sudden transition from warmth to cold is a hellish torture. The change in the temperature, it is unbearable, and one gets up only due to compulsion. He compares this torture to harpy-footed fairies dragging out lost souls out from fire and thrusting them into ice. Then the reason behind this hellish torture. He gives the reason and he tells that getting up on cold mornings and shaving are punishments given to mankind because of Adam and Eve, because they had sinned against God. Before sinning, they neither had snowy winters and nor Adam was compelled to shave. Then he talks about ways to avoid early rising by lazy people. Hunt sets himself as an example to show the ways to avoid early rising. First of all, he starts an inquiry about the cold weather outside to his servant, who has the intention to wake him up. Next, he commands that servant to keep ready all the articles and dresses. Then he orders hot water for shaving, and he finds excuse on saying that the water is too hot and so he needs some time for the water to cool down. Then at last he had no reasons to excuse and so he got up and was ready to shave. Then next he talks about active people's motivation, that why some people get up early in the morning. He says that businessmen may get up early because they love money more than comfort. Then some people who are slaves to daily routines, or rather they are like machines or like barometer, they would get up early to maintain their pride. After that, he gives different arguments in favor of laziness by telling us about shaving. He begins by telling us about shaving. He says that shaving is a villainous custom since the cold razor is a contrast to warmth. And then he gives an example of, he quotes an example of Queen Eleanor. She divorced her husband, King Louis of France, because he had shaved his beard. So he states that beard adds impressive looks to man. Then the next argument he gives is that because of sheer pleasure of late rising, he likes it. He marks about the poet Thomson, who accuses a man getting up late. Hunt says that even Thomson himself used to get up at noon, thereby expressing his laziness. So no one could refuse the pleasure of late rising. Then he talks about health. People say early rising is good for health, but Hunt says that there are no proofs for this so far. But however, sudden change in temperature due to getting up from bed may bring shock to the body and thereby affecting good health. So instead of means if instead of getting good health, it will affect our health adversely. Then he talks about longevity of life. He says that if in case early rising increases longevity of life is true, this does not mean that long things are beautiful. And then he gives an example. He says that the longest street in London is Holborn. But that does not mean that it is beautiful also because it is long. Likewise, a short life with joys of late rising may be better than a long life with sufferings of early rising in cold weather. So, in conclusion, we can say that he just brings out the pleasure in late rising on a cold morning. Hunt has not uh, uh, Hunt has not neither moved the arguments to absurdity nor he is advised to rise late. He just explains or tells us about the pleasure in late rising. So these are the arguments or the views of Leigh Hunt regarding getting up on cold mornings, and the essay is written in humorous tone, as is quite clear with the examples which he cites. So this is the summary and the analysis of this essay. That's all for today. Thank you.